And welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is your publisher and EIC, Gabe Hernandez. This is our weekly newsletter. It is Monday, February 12th, 2024. Thank you for joining along. We're happy to have you. Today's op-ed, before we get into the rest of the newsletter, is going to focus on something that we're going to call spiritual pressure, which is that small, still, quiet voice inside you that kind of makes you feel like you're locked up and can't quite progress and move in the direction you want to move. But that pressure is there for a very good reason. And if you listen to it, it could lead to a pretty big creative breakthrough. And this has a direct impact on comics and the comic industry, both for the individual creators and the ecosystem as a whole. But before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for notification so you know when the next videos come out. And we are happy to have you along. So today's op-ed we're going to talk about is something we're going to call spiritual pressure. So it's that feeling in your gut that feels like, I don't know, that like the engine has kind of seized up because there's not enough oil, or you just want to kind of go through your daily routine or your weekly routine to write your script or draw your next panel or do whatever it is you want to do creatively in your journey as a comic professional or even an aspiring comic professional. And you've just been doing the same things over and over and over and over again, and then just all of a sudden you reach this point where you just feel locked up, like you want to take that next step but you can't. You're feeling like there's something inside you, like some kind of block or an anger. It's just forcing you to seize up. We're going to call that spiritual pressure, and that pressure is there for a very good reason. It's there to help you. Now, before you start burning your incense and shining your new age crystals and doing whatever the woo stuff that you got handy, or if that kind of stuff turns you off, it's not about that. It's kind of about that, but it's really not about that. So spiritual pressure is that is something within every person who wants to do something creative. If you're an artist, if you're a writer, if you're a letterer, if you're a colorist, or whatever it is that you want to do in a creative realm, and we're going to stick to the realm of comics, it's that creative wellspring where all your ideas come from, where your ability to kind of look past the everyday and find those creative juices flowing to create or make whatever it is you want to make. That wellspring has protections in place, and it also has a little bit, if you want to call it, God speaking to you, if you want to say it's some higher power, or if you're agnostic or don't believe in that stuff. It's just wherever the higher plane of consciousness that exists within you that makes creativity possible. That's where that source comes from. It's inside you, and it lives within inside you. And so if you're doing creative endeavors, like you're drawing or you're writing or you're doing whatever it is you're doing within the realm of comics, that creativity flow, that wellspring, will sometimes lock up and block up, and it'll prevent you from taking that next step. Now, for some people, like for example, writers, we'll call that like a writer's block. There's something there that's preventing you from moving forward. But the better way to look at it is it's not a block, and it's not that you're stuck and that you're not meant to go forward. What that really is we're going to call that spiritual pressure, which is whatever that creative spirit comes from, it's pushing on you because it's telling you that you've gone as far as you could go on your current path. And it's time for you to pivot. It's time for you to make a change, to go into a new direction, or to take a step back, take a breath, and say, hey, maybe I need to fine tune, or maybe I need to just try something different. Try something different because I've gone as far as I can go in my repetition, in my practice, but now it's time for me to take the next creative step in my journey. And so within the realm of comics, there are at least several examples, actually, but we're going to focus on two quick ones. First one is Frank Miller. I mean, if you've been around comics for any length of time, you know who Frank Miller is. Everything from The Dark Knight to Daredevil to Sin City and a whole host of creative accomplishments in between. Well, Frank Miller wasn't always the creative legend that he is known to be today. He had to start somewhere, and he went through the cycles and the processes of being a standard writer, a standard creative force, and trying to do different things. But it wasn't until he really shifted from being kind of the standard house type of artist and writer into his own work, and then allowed himself to kind of let loose a little bit, because he pivoted and because he made that changes, that's where he became the creator, genius, and legend that we know him to be. So, for example, in the op-ed, I've got two examples. The one cover that you see on the right here is ROM number 3. That's a standard, it's a pretty good, but it's still a pretty standard ROM type cover from Marvel Comics, and that was published in 1980. Uh, Daredevil, however, is where Frank Miller was placed in the book, and that's where he really started to let himself loose a little bit. Now, to the untrained amateur, just novice, casual reader, I mean, the two covers are good, but they look pretty similar. But if you look closely on 168, technically speaking, Frank Miller didn't start on Daredevil until 1979 on 158, but this is where you can see how some of his processes have started to evolve a little bit. So they're roughly in the same time frame, but you can see that when he moved on to Daredevil, he really took over the book. That's where you can start to see some of what we've come to know as a film noir style. He's dealing with a lot stronger silhouettes. You can see the beginnings of Elektra taking shape, which is one of his more famous portrayed characters. You can see in the background with the rain and the silhouette of the pedestal that Elektra is standing on, how some of that film noir style that he'll be known for in the future, where things like Sin City, how that's really starting to come out and really starting to push through. Let's take another example. We're going to talk about Alan Moore. So Alan Moore was still an excellent writer, known for many things like V for Vendetta and for Miracle Man and any number of publications, but they were really primarily UK focused. And that's nothing wrong with that, but that's to say that's how he was sort of known. But when he pivoted and he took over the saga of Swamp Thing, and particularly with his seminal work on that title, The Anatomy Lesson, that's when he really broke through, especially in the American market and especially with DC. And that led to so many other things, particularly Watchmen and so many other titles that we're not going to go over the whole list, but you can see it here. So he was known for one thing, and then he made a pivot because he was pushed in that direction. And then when he took over Swamp Thing, and especially when he created an Anatomy Lesson, which was like the big hit for that title, where that title was previously floundering, he not only pivoted himself as a writer creatively, he pivoted that title creatively and took Swamp Thing in completely new directions that made a big difference in how you understand that character. And it changed that character forever. So that's a huge win right there, because he was put under pressure to make a change. He made that change. He pivoted about how he was doing things and who he was working with and what titles he was taking over, and that he launched in the American market. This wasn't his only title in the American market, obviously, but it made a huge difference in how he was doing things. And that led to great creative improvements and great creative changes. So that brings that back to us for here, the folks at Comical Opinions. We encountered something. I would say, I won't say we're not going to say we're geniuses like Alan Moore or Frank Miller, but it's the same similar type of process. It's a cycle. You do the same things over and over again. I wholeheartedly believe we write and publish some of the best comic reviews around. I wholeheartedly believe that. But it's more than that. It's also understanding that once you get into that cycle and do it over and over and over again and fine tune and fine tune and fine tune, eventually you reach a point where you just can't improve anymore. And so that creative wellspring that's within you, and we felt the same way. It was just like this block. All of a sudden, this seizing up of the creative engine that said, "Hey, you've got to pivot. It's time to make a change. You can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. You creatively you want to expand. You want to grow. You got to pivot." And that's sort of what led us to this current change that we're going through right now of completely reworking our entire publishing process. Not only writing written reviews, but also now doing video, merging them together, and sort of creating a hub and spoke model, if you will. I'm not going to give too much away about the sausage making process and the secret sauce, but it's a question of just taking the thought processes. How do we get that thought out there in different platforms in different ways, so that way we can kind of bring everybody together, just to kind of bring focus on comics that people don't normally talk about, let you know who's creating what and doing some things that are just beyond the standard. Everybody's talking about Batman and Spider-Man. That was the whole point of creating this site, is to kind of bring more exposure to things that people don't necessarily see because it's not out there. And now we're kind of taking it to that next level, making that next step, because we felt that spiritual pressure as well. And when you feel that pressure, that's not a bad thing, although it's uncomfortable. it's a good thing because it's telling you that you're ready for the next level. It's ready for a breakthrough. And so my my warning and my encouragement to you is, if you feel that spiritual pressure, if you feel that block that's holding you back, saying I'm doing the things I'm always doing, and all of a sudden I'm seizing up and I don't feel like I can do anymore. That doesn't mean stop. It means pivot and break through. Listen to that small voice. Try something different. Try and rework how you're doing things. Think outside the box and break through. You'll be more creative for it. You'll be better for it, and eventually that'll take you to the next level. So that's the op-ed for today. But what do you think about the idea of spiritual pressure? What do you think about that idea of something inside you just kind of seizing you up and blocking you? Have you ever felt that? Do you know anybody who has? And when they listen to that voice and they chose to pivot in a different direction, how did that improve what they did? Did they become better for it? Did it make them stronger for it, or did it kind of change their creative heights? Let us know. Tell us your story. We want to hear from you. What did you think about this? Because we really want to understand how people are experiencing the same thing that we do. So that's it for the op-ed. Let's move on to the rest of the newsletter. So yes. So speaking of pivots, we have not forgotten about our Making a Comic series. We're just taking a little bit of a hiatus while we work out restructuring our entire publication process and how we're doing written reviews and videos and everything else. So Making Comic is not gone. It's just a little bit on hold once we've not sort of nailed down our publishing processes, because that is the main thing of what we do. We'll be back on track for the next episode 3, when it's all about the pitch. And we're going to provide everybody who watches that video and reads that document. We're going to provide everybody who wants it a copy of the pitch template that we're using for our first indie comic script. And if you want a copy of it, please make sure you subscribe so you get notified when the next episode comes out. And once it is released, you're going to get a copy of the template free of charge. This is our gift for you for reading what we do, watching our videos, and following along. And last but not least, because we are making these changes to how we publish reviews, you're going to see the format change a little bit. Sometimes headers are in different places. Sometimes bullet points are in different places. Don't get alarmed. It's just us trying to experiment and try different things to figure out what's the most efficient way of getting the review out there, but while still providing the content in a meaningful, meaty way, and making sure that the reviews pair pretty well with the video reviews. We want them to kind of be very synergistically aligned. And so if you see the formats kind of change and incrementally go up and down, and they look like they're different reviews written by different people, every single one you read, that's by design, because we're experimenting. We're trying different things and making sure that we eventually lock it down to the next type of best review for you. Okay, so that's it for the updates. Now let's go on to the reviews from last week and this week. So won't read through the whole list of reviews. The links are in the newsletter. So go to if you're watching this on YouTube, please go to the newsletter. The links for all our reviews are there, or just visit our site, ComicalOpinions.com, and the reviews are all there. I will say the pick of the week for us, surprisingly, not Thundercats #1. It was a good comic. Not fantastic, but it was still good. If we had to line them up and say, okay, which one gave us the most bang for our buck, it's going to be Oz Kingdom of the Lost #3 from Zenescope. So that's the finale of the 3-part miniseries from Zenescope, and they stuck the landing. So I would definitely recommend picking that up. So moving on to reviews for this week coming up, we have the Codex Volume 1, which is an indie submission. Pop-up #4 from Blood Moon. We also have Ice Canyon Monster #1, Humbaba #1, and Haunted House: A Love Story #4, all from Blood Moon Comics. Big week for Blood Moon. From Image, we have Transformers #5, and I believe The Scorch #26. Yep. From Dynamite, we have Vampirella #666. That's a renumbering of their ongoing series, and they'll keep that numbering going forward. Also from Dynamite, we have Savage Red Sonja #4, and Jennifer Blood, Battle Diary #3, and Alice Cooper, Volume 2, #5. And also from Image, we have Creepshow Wolverton Station, which is a one-shot from Joe Hill. From Titan Comics, we have Rebel Moon, House of the Blood Axe #2. That's based on the Zack Snyder films. Blade Runner 2039 #10, and Bloodborne Bleak Dominion #4. And then scrolling down the list from Zenoscope, we have Van Helsing Bonded by Blood, which is a one-shot, which is different than the last week's Van Helsing vampire series. And Mist Dragon's Guard no, just one shot. Mist Dragon's Guard. Okay, that's it for issues coming up this week, and we might catch up on one or two that we missed from the last weeks prior. But that's it for this week. Thank you so much for joining along. We hope you please like, share, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell for notification. Let us so that you can be notified when we have a new video up. And we're trying to get things going so at least we're doing some videos at least 5 days a week, if not 7 days a week. And if you're not already, please subscribe to the newsletter so you can get this newsletter delivered to your inbox every single Monday. Thank you so much for joining. This is Gabe Hernandez, your publisher and EIC for Comical Opinions, signing off.